Every one of my neighbors was super excited about this conversation, so thank you for bringing our book group to life. 2010, we start to see a shift in the mental health of our youth. What happens in those years?
So there's never been anything like this in the mental health statistics. Rates of anxiety, depression, self-harm are fairly flat from the 90s through 2010, even 2011. There's no sign of a problem. Suicide rates fluctuate, but they're actually going down until 2007, 2008. No sign of a problem in 2011. And then all kinds of data from the US shows hockey stick shaped curves. It just goes up, 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 especially for girls. The curves are really sharp for girls. So whatever it is, it hit girls, and especially preteen girls in the early 2010s. And the boys are getting more depressed and anxious and lonelier, but it's not so sharp, and that's a really important clue. And that's why we sort of didn't see what was happening with the boys as much. But my point is, something changed, and it's not just mental health that got worse. Test scores started dropping. Something changed in human childhood, because when we discovered it wasn't just the US, we saw the same shapes in Canada, Australia, Scandinavia, Europe as a whole. So something changed globally that's affecting human development in a disastrous way.
And that something was?
And that something was, well, the short answer is social media, but the longer answer is it's not actually social media per se, although for girls that is the central thing. It's the complete rewiring of childhood. We have 200 million years of evolution for a mammal childhood, and it has to go in a certain order, and it has to have play, and it has to have rough and tumble play, and it has to have chasing games and all sorts of things. You develop the skills. And then how about all of a sudden we give everybody a video arcade in their pocket, a porn theater in their pocket, a gambling casino in their pocket, every television station in their pocket. Oh, and they can bring it to school. How about that? That's what changed. The loss of what we would recognize as childhood, the loss of the kind of childhood that almost everyone in this room had, and the replacement by basically just different apps all day long.
You talked about the fact that how this hits girls and boys is different, that for girls, their social lives move online to social media. For boys, though, they become immersed in a virtual world. What does that mean?
Yeah, so this was harder for us to figure out, because starting from the data, it was really clear that something was hitting girls, and that girls who spend more time on social media are more depressed, and there's experimental evidence. So that was really clear. And when I started writing The Anxious Generation, I didn't know what the boys' story was. I thought, well, maybe it'll be video games, and it sort of is, but really what I've come to see, even more since the book came out, is if you keep your eye on dopamine, you've all heard of dopamine, neurotransmitter. It's not just of pleasure and reward. It's really, the key thing is motivation. It makes you want to do something. And in a good childhood, your kid has a goal. I want to build a tree house. I want to get a girlfriend, whatever. There's a goal, and when you make progress towards it, you get dopamine. That's the way it's supposed to work. That's healthy development. But how about we let millions of companies get right into our kids' heads, especially the boys, and say, hey, you can get really quick dopamine by defeating this enemy here, and then you move on to the next level. So video games are engineered to give boys quick dopamine that hooks them without teaching them anything. They don't make any progress towards goals. But that's just where it starts. This is what I'm coming to see. It's not just the video games. It's the porn, it's the vaping, it's the crypto investing is gamified, it's loot boxes in video games. We're literally exposing our children, especially boys, to gambling when they're 15 and 16 years old. And then a lot of them, as Richard Reeves has pointed out, and Scott Galloway, whenever sports betting is legalized, bankruptcies go up, and that's mostly young men. So we're getting them addicted to, we're ruining their dopamine systems, getting them addicted to all sorts of things, and then they go out into the world where we hope they'll find a job, and then more of them are going to go bankrupt from gambling. So it's open season on boys' dopamine systems. This has to stop.
I think a lot of us understand the perils of an entirely online life and social media in terms of the ills that you're exposed to, but one of the things that your book forced me to think about is the opportunity cost. What are kids not doing because they are spending so much time in front of a screen? And as you argue, part of that is just play, and particularly rough play. And I wonder for boys in particular, how that then impacts their development.
Yeah. So if you think about the opportunity cost, here's a good way to do it. Think of your fondest memories from childhood. Think of the most exciting things you ever did. Think of positive memories from childhood. Okay, now, did you ever laugh with a friend? Did you do that 1,000,000 times? I'm like, okay, cut that by 70%. because they don't see their friends very much. When you're liking their post, that doesn't count. Shared laughter, we are a physical species. We laugh together, we eat together, we wrestle, we embrace. Take away 70% of all of that. Were you ever out in the sunshine? Take away 70%. Did you ever sleep? Take away 10 or 20% of that. Did you read a book when you were a kid? Take away 80% of that. You take out almost everything that's worthwhile in childhood, almost all of it, and you pump it full of entertainment, just entertainment all day long, mostly short videos. You only get one childhood, and if you spend literally half of it for some kids, a lot of kids, you're pumping out almost everything that matters in childhood. That's the opportunity.
I will say, I think one of the places where your work and Reshma's work as it relates to moms and systems of care overlap is, I've heard you share the statistic about the number of 2-year-olds in the United States who have their own iPad, and it is horrific. And at the same time, as a parent, my kids don't have their own iPads, largely because I am very cheap. Not any success of parenting. It's because parents are burnt out.
Yeah,
because there's not enough collective care and there are not enough safety nets for parents. And so of course parents, like, it's not even, I'm having a conversation with my husband while they're on the iPad, it's doing the dishes, I'm throwing in a load of laundry. There's so much to do that I understand the need for individual choices, but also it is in the shadow of a system that is failing parents.
Absolutely. The key thing that we did wrong without knowing it was we all discovered that a touchscreen device is the most effective pacifier ever invented, right? I mean, when my son was born in 2006, in 2008 I got my first iPhone. He mastered it. At the age of 2, he mastered it. And by 3, he could get addicted to video games. But back then, we were all techno-optimists. We all thought, oh, the internet's amazing. Technology's amazing. Oh, Silicon Valley. Oh, maybe my son will grow up. Maybe he'll learn to program. Maybe he'll, So we all thought the technology was good and good for kids. And so when you need to do the dishes and your kid's saying, iPhone, iPhone, and so, yeah, here, take the iPhone. That's pretty cool, you're navigating. And then you can do your thing, he'll do his thing for an hour or 2. But that's how childhood goes. And so, and once you start on that, then they lose the ability to tolerate boredom. And so then at any moment, like every car ride, somebody just told me recently, at drop-off at preschool, kids are crying like crazy, not because mom is leaving, but because the iPad is leaving, because they were on it on their way to nursery school. So yeah, this is where we are. We've got to stop. I focused on adolescence in the book, but now I'm seeing even more damage might be being done in the first 5 to 7 years because of the heavy screen use.
Your recommendations are very clear. No smartphone until high school, no social media until 16 at the very youngest. I do wonder how we are supposed to help our children with this addiction when you have a generation of parents who are likewise addicted.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, the fact that we are using these devices for work, the fact that we're doing things, kids understand. Look, when I was a kid, adults were smoking. It doesn't mean that we have to smoke. Now, sure, I mean, it would have helped if adults stopped smoking, but kids are mostly focused on what other kids want and think is cool, not what their parents are doing. So it's very important when your kids are very young to not do continuous partial attention. That's the thing we do, like, oh yeah, yeah, that's the bunny rabbit. Don't do that. But older kids aren't really copying us so much. What we have to do is create, these things are so powerful, so addictive, that the advice, talk to your child, teach them digital wellness or whatever, that doesn't seem to be working for many people. We have to create zones in which they're just not devices. And that includes especially after 9 or 10 o'clock at night. The big rule I wish I'd done in my family was no screens in the bedroom ever. If I had started off with that, no screens in the bedroom ever. Yeah, we have a computer here. You guys can use the internet sometimes, out in the living room. Yeah, we have a TV set. You can watch movies. But no screens in the bedroom. I wish I'd done that. Because once you don't do that, then it's hard to get them out. No screens at the dinner table, just things like that.
And at school, you're a big advocate.
Yes, oh my God, yes. So Alicia mentioned the 4 norms. This is all a giant collective action problem where we're all trapped because everyone else is doing it. But if we all do this together, we can get out of it. And so it's no smartphone before high school, Don't give your kids a smartphone before 14 or high school. You can give a flip phone or basic phone to communicate with them. No social media until 16. This needs to be done ultimately as a law, as they're doing in Australia, and other countries are going to follow, but we can do it as a norm for now. Phone-free schools, and this is the most thrilling thing. This is happening around the world because it was insane that we ever let this happen, and every teacher knew it, every principal knew it. So that they're being taken out of school. I was just in Brazil. The entire country has gone phone-free. And then the fourth norm, oh, yeah, this is perfect for the fatherhood.
Because it deals with
okay,
dads.
so the fourth norm is far more independence, free play, and responsibility in the real world. Now, up till now, there's been huge progress on the first three norms, and it's been driven by moms. In a sense, there's been a mother's rebellion around the world, because mothers felt this. They felt the kids being pulled away. I think they felt it more than men did. So mothers were first on the scene. Mothers are organizing smartphone-free childhood in the UK, Movimento Desconecta in Brazil. Like, they got going, they got laws passed. It's amazing what mothers are driving. But the fourth norm, far more independence, free play, this is where we really, really need dads. Because one of the coolest ideas I found in researching the book is in chapter 3, we have a section on free play and thrills. And it turns out risk and fear are actually, and excitement and thrills, these are biologically necessary. Kids need to climb a tree to the point where they're scared, and then maybe they go down, but then the next time they go higher. They need that over and over again. And if you think about playing with your parents, a lot of us have the memory, I mean, who would chase you around and pretend to be a monster? Probably dad. Moms aren't that good at pretending to be predators of their own children, but dads are perfect for the job. And it's that, I remember like that, running for my life, but still laughing, right? It's that combination. So, so we really need dads to step up and be the one who pushes for free play, risk-taking, independence, and thrills.
I'm gonna clip this part for my mom, who's the grandma, who's like, not there, too high, what are you doing? Do you have a plan? Like, she's not gonna like this piece of advice, but I like it. So there are the choices we make as individuals and in compact with our neighbors and friends within our social universe, but you reference the fact that there are also larger structural changes that you would like to see. What are those?
Oh my goodness, there's so many of them. One which is really tough, but it's crucial, is that the built environment when my parents were kids, they could play stickball in the streets of New York City. Whereas, and then when I grew up in a suburb in Scarsdale, that was still great. We could roam around. I was just in Brazil. In Brazil, they don't let their kids out because there's so much crime. And even the parents didn't get out to play. So we have to pay attention to how receptive is the world outside of house and school. How receptive is that to 8, 9, and 10-year-olds roaming around? And we've got to, and you have it, we were talking beforehand, you actually have it. Just tell the folks what you have.
I live in a community where we can put our kids in the, one communal backyard and we all watch them from a window. So it means the kids
Oh, it's just the backyard, though.
Well, no, the backyard, but they can also walk, like, to the pool by themselves.
Okay,
like, they can walk to the little library, but they have a little bit more freedom. But even
starting at what age? 8? Or
I feel like
later?
it is a still negotiated thing post-COVID. And you made a point in the book that I have had to sit with, which is part of the fear of sending your children out into the world is that there are just predators out there who are waiting for children. And as you say, there are many more predators online.
But they all moved to Instagram. It's so much safer. Yeah. So we have to overcome this fear. And so we have to find ways that kids can have some. So dads need to be helping the kids have adventure and risk and thrill. But the biggest challenge is dads especially need to be setting the kids up to have those risks and thrills and adventures without them. And I'm not saying that has to happen at age 8, but I think we need a norm. Here's a norm I'd like to propose, which is out by 8. That doesn't mean your kid is wandering alone in your neighborhood.
I have an 8-year-old, so go ahead, tell me more.
But imagine this. Out by 8, it just means that you're going to find a way to give your 8-year-old some time without you supervising. And so the way that I first did that with my wife, what we do is we'd go to the Liberty Science Center, and the kids loved it. And we would just, after they knew their way, we would just sit in the cafeteria and say, we bring a book, kids, you go off and run. And they were thrilled to not be supervised. They could run around that museum.
Starting
so that was totally safe at 8, Wait, does that seem anxious to you? Like it?
You know, I am the anxious generation. The kids are fine. And part of it is also personality-wise, where it's like, I would send my 5-year-old today. I would send her to ShopRite, and she would scan all the items and come back with exactly what I asked her, plus a treat. My 8-year-old is just a different personality
But
type.
that's fine. But that just means that your 5-year-old, you could actually give her some independence in a more open space, whereas your 8-year-old, and it could be just like, go into the supermarket and buy these things. I'll be waiting right out here. I'm just saying out by 8, meaning just something. And then an amazing thing happens. The first time you do it, you are so nervous. I was too. When we let my kids walk to school, we sent them to, you're so nervous. But then they do it, and the cure for anxiety is exposure. And so my son was nervous the first time we sent him to Morton Williams, the supermarket across the street, and he said, everybody was looking at me funny because no one had seen an 8-year-old out on their own since 1994. So, but the thing is, the first time you're nervous, second time less so, third time you're not nervous. And that's how you become dependent.
You've talked, though, about the fact that there is a perception of danger and the level of crime in America relative to the fact that in the 80s, when we were running around, crime was actually higher.
That's right. That's right. Crime was very, very high in the 70s and 80s when most of us in the room grew up. And there were drunk drivers, a lot of them, and some of them were us. And those are not all gone, but drunk driving is way, way down. Now, there is distracted driving, that's true. But the world is so much safer. Death rates for kids have plummeted. So the world is much safer than it ever was. But okay, back to your question about systemic. Why did we stop letting our kids out in the 90s, just as the crime rate was dropping? I didn't know this when I wrote the book, but since then, think about the work of Robert Putnam, Bowling Alone, the loss of social capital, loss of trust. All the way through the 70s, we had high social capital, high social trust. Parents let their kids out. If I wiped out on my bicycle, my friend could, knock on a door, can you call his mom? But we don't trust our neighbors that way anymore. So the loss of social capital means we no longer are a village raising our kids. It's every family for themselves, and that mostly falls on the moms. And the moms are judged the most harshly. That's part of the reason why the moms are so overprotective. It's not just that they're afraid of risk, it's also they're afraid of being publicly shamed or attacked or called a bad mom for letting their kid out. So everyone, please, if you have young kids especially, go to letgrow.org, started by Lenore Skenazy and me, but Lenore is really the person behind it. She wrote Free Range Kids. This is a major area of collective action. We have to band together to find ways to do this. And it can be as simple as a group of families as you have a few with the backyard. Well, what if you just have a few in a neighborhood and all the families know the kids can roam between our houses. And then before you know it, people see kids roaming around. So we've got to change the norms because it is objectively much safer, but we've lost a lot of trust.
You and I have about 2.5 minutes, and here's where I am landing, which is, let's say that there is a dad in the audience who's like so on board, and he's like, I'm gonna have to go home and sell this to my partner. And what if there is a mom in the audience who says, how do I engage my partner in wanting to take this journey with me? Where do you start that conversation? Because it has to be an agreement between the two of you. That's the only way it works.
Yes, that's right. Well, you can have a little bit of tension. You can have it where the mom is scanning for threats and the dad is scanning for risky possibilities. That actually is an okay dynamic, unless you're too far apart, and then you got marital problems. But the thing I would start with is we have to do what's best for the kids, not what's best for our feelings. And of course we're anxious when we send the kids out. Of course we are. That's natural, and that's what our society has been. We have to do what's best for the kids. And guess what? If you protect your kids from all risk, you're ultimately hurting them. You want your kids to leave the nest and fly. We've got to give them some practice flying. And so I would, get them on board with saying, we want our kids to flourish, to fly the nest. And so let's do it in little steps. And then you just take a little step, and the kids love it. They're so excited that it becomes a feedback loop where you want to do it more. So go to letgrow.org, read Free Range Kids. I have a lot of stuff. Lenore actually helped me write parts of The Anxious Generation. So don't see it as, think about it as how do you help your kid flourish? What does your kid need? And think of your own childhood. What did you have?
I feel I am very lucky that I read your book and we're having this conversation when my children are 5 and 8. But if you have an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, you've already let devices in. This already feels like it has gotten away from you. is there the possibility of undoing?
Yes, absolutely. It's hard to do if you do it alone, but a lot of parents are still doing it. If your kid is deep, deep, deep into social media and you take them entirely off, that could cause problems because their social life has been rewired. But even if they're already on it, you can still put a lot of limits on. You can just, no phones in the apartment. You can use your computer to communicate. So you can still, as Dr. Becky says, you're the pilot of the airplane, and if you get new information, your job is, if you get new information about the risks, you're not, if it's snowing in Salt Lake City and we can't land, I'm not going to land because, you can change course. And so we have new information now. So you can make changes. And if lots of parents are doing it, then the kid won't feel alone. So whatever change, always try to coordinate with the parents of your kids' friends, because then they'll be much easier for everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan Haidt.